So, all right, welcome to Numenera, my inaugural game of Numenera One Shot, which typically means that it's just a way to show people how to play the game. It's not meant to be, every week we're meeting at Sunday night at 10 to play a game, but that might be in the future. We'll see how that goes. But this is a first chance for me running Numenera the first time, so I've only run one other game so far, and that was sitting at my dining room table. So that's new for me, and the Roll20 app is new, so we're gonna try it out. And we've got several people with us. We've got StephanLome, our streamer from Wife Aggro. We've got PB Plays. You've got a YouTube channel, right?
Yep, PB Plays inside.
There we go. Perfect. Chuff of Choughington III. He has got a YouTube channel also. And
he's got 5 of them.
Yeah, he probably has more than one.
It's true.
And he's super famous. So he's the most famous guy on our stream right now. Look him up if you don't know him. And then we have Kernel, who you guys would know as MCKerrnel, the Minecraft dude, and over at the STBN group, and does actually a lot more than just that, but that's probably what you would know him from. And then me, Sir Lucien, from Sir Lucien Gaming Channel. So we're all here. We're at Roll20. You guys are seeing my version, so you're getting to see the GM version on my recording here. But if you want to watch over on the Twitch channel for Wife Aggro, you'll get to see it from a player's perspective. If the others are recording or doing whatever, you might be able to see it from their perspectives. They might not. This is the first time for all of us. I've met PB for the first time tonight, so it's awesome she's here with us. Unfortunately, I already know Kernel, and now Chuff, so that's good.
It's not the first time I've heard that.
And Loam, long time, good time friend. I don't know how we haven't not been friends, but he definitely had to play, so we're in. So today's adventure is to help teach us a little bit about Numenera. So the first thing I think I'm going to do is I'll read to you guys a little bit. I've probably posted this, so you might have seen it. Some of you went and looked it up, but just in case, I'm going to read a little bit from the book here about Numenera and Welcome to the Ninth World, which is the world we're going to be playing in today, just for those viewers that maybe not have seen it. So, and please, if my reading out loud is horrible, I apologize now. But there have been 8 previous worlds. You may refer to them as ages, aeons, epochs, or eras, but it's not wrong to think of each as its own individual world. Each former world stretched across vast millennia of time. Each played host to a race whose civilizations rose to supremacy, but eventually died or scattered, disappeared, or transcended. During the time that each would flourish, those that ruled it spoke to the stars, re-engineered their physical bodies, and mastered form and essence, all in their unique ways. Each left behind remnants. The ninth world is built on the bones of the previous 8, and in particular, the last 4. Reach into the dust and you'll find that each particle has been worked, manufactured, or grown, and then ground back into drit, which is a common word that we use here to say what the ground is. A fine artificial soil. By the relentless power of time. Look to the horizon. Is that a mountain or part of an impossible monument to a forgotten emperor or of a lost people? Feel that subtle vibration beneath your feet and know that ancient engines, vast machines the size of kingdoms, still operate in the bowels of the earth. The ninth world is about discovering the wonders of the world that came before it, not for their own sake, but as a means to improve the present, build the future. Each of the prior 8 worlds, in its own way, is too distant, too different, too incomprehensible to understand. Life today is too dangerous to dwell on the past. That cannot be understood. People excavate and study the marvels of the prior epochs just enough to help them survive in the world that they have been given. They know the energies and the knowledge are suspended invisibly in the air that reshaped continents of iron and glass below, upon, and above the earth. These all hold vast treasures, and that secret doorways to stars and other dimensions and realms provide power and secret and death. They sometimes call it magic, and who are we to say that they're wrong? More often, however, when they find leftovers of the old world, the devices, the vast machine complexes, the altered landscapes, the changes wrought upon living creatures by ancient energies, the invisible nanospirits hovering in the air in clouds called the iron wind, the information is transmitted into the so-called data sphere. and the remnants of the visitors from other dimensions and alien planets, they call these things the Numenera. So these are all things that are possible to find. In the ninth world, the Numenera is both a boon and a bane. It makes life very different from any other time on Earth. In a southern part of the vast singular continent of the ninth world lies a cluster of settled lands collectively called the Steadfast. Although each of the kingdoms and principalities of the Steadfast holds its own ruler, a leader known as the Amber Pope guides the Order of Truth. And that's probably as far as we'll go there. There's deeper in the wilds lies the region called the Beyond, where villages and communities are isolated and rare. Here, Aeon priests still study the secrets of the past, but they do so in cloistered, remote conclaves. So that's kind of a little bit about what we're going to do, just to give you a feel. So this is the ninth world. 8 came before it, and in fact, it even says, if you do a little talking, and you guys would know a little bit of this in character, that some of those ages, some of those epochs, they didn't even have humans on Earth. So we had risen, disappeared, our civilization was gone, other civilizations were here, other types of people or species or aliens or whatever you want to call them had their own, rise and fall, and all of this is we're just kind of built on kind of the bones of all of that. And the picture that I've shown here is the place we're going to be starting at is Strihall. Now, game mechanic wise, so that's a little bit of our setting, and you can kind of think of it as a little bit of fantasy with science fiction mixed in, because people still run around with swords, people still use bows, people still use these things, but you might have some type of piece of technology that does something, and you may not know how to build that thing, but it's like a taser and it can stun somebody, or and nobody knows how to build one of those. They just find one, or they figure out how to make it work again, and then they use it. So that's kind of the stuff that we're going to see. So a little bit of fantasy that's mixed with sci-fi aspects to it. And we're at the beginning of the ninth world, so that's why technology hasn't risen back up to the levels of being able to use nanites to reconfigure everything. That's just kind of building back up after the last civilization fall. All right, so in Roll20, everybody has looked, and they've probably seen the little chat thing on the side where it talks about how to roll dice. And the cool thing about that is for tonight's session, mostly what we're going to be rolling is D20s. So to roll that is just a /roll 1d20, and then it's going to roll that and give us a number, and we'll be able to use that. But we need characters to play this game, as it is a role-playing game. So I have created, let me bring up my sheet here. I have created 6 characters. So you 4 get to pick from the 6 that I've created. What are the types of characters? So I told some of you have seen a little bit of it, but I'll go over it again. There's 3 types of characters. There's a glaive, a jack, and a nano. The glaive is kind of like your action person. You're more of can typically maybe be thought of as a fighter of some sort, but it doesn't just mean just the strong type fighter. It could be like a Conan type. It could be like a Bruce Willis type. It could be like a just any type of action hero, person of action. They want to punch stuff. That's how they solve problems. They're ready to arm wrestle. They're ready to do whatever it takes physically to kind of meet any obstacle that they come across. So that's going to be the glaive. They're known warriors, strong, and understanding the martial art kind of stuff. The jack is kind of your jack of all trades, a person who's gotten a lot of training in a lot of things, but maybe not specialized in any one thing. A lot of times they end up being your stealthy characters. They end up being those that like to sneak around. They typically find creative ways to get around the obstacles that might be in front of them. Sometimes they're referred to as rogues or thieves and things like that. But in role playing, it's not quite that way. All right. And then the nano is kind of your shaper of the energies that permeate the world. And sometimes when people see those things, you can think of it as magic, because in reality, we may not be able to explain how they're doing it or what they're doing, but they're able to throw lightning at somebody, or they might be able to move an object, or they might have some type of things that you might kind of categorize with like a wizard or a mage or those kinds of things if you're going to go for more of a fantasy. If you're going to have like D&D equivalents, even though you shouldn't lock yourself into the old D&D equivalents. So those are the 3 types, and I've made 2 of each, and I'll give you the way the characters work is typically they have a sentence that describes what the character is. So it kind of gives you an idea why one character might be different than another. Even though you might have 2 glaives in the party, they could be very different characters and play very differently depending on a couple of things. So they have basically an adjective, what we call as a focus. There's a foci or a focus. There is, why am I drawing a blank now as I'm thinking about it? Let me go back to my book here a second. What do they call those 3 things?
You've lost your foci.
Yes, I've lost my foci. I know it's an adjective, but they have a different word for it. So there's a list of it. Character type. So type is the glaive, the jack, and the nano. So you have a type, a focus, and where's the chart? It's almost there. I've been looking at it all day. You'd think I would know it, but almost there. People on my screen are able to see it. You guys may not be able to see it. Descriptor. That's what they call it, a descriptor. So it's like, it's an adjective, but they call it a descriptor. So as an example, one of the characters that I created is a strong glaive who wields 2 weapons. So you get your descriptor, you get your type, and you get your foci. And that kind of gives you your base set of skills and abilities and attributes and things that are about you. So I have a strong glaive who wields 2 weapons. I have a tough glaive who rages. We have a swift jack who hunts with great skill. A stealthy jack who explores dark places. And then we have an intelligent nano who rides the lightning. And we have a mechanical nano who works miracles. So without really knowing too much, does any one of those jump out to any of you as far as that's the one I want to play? That sounds like the person I want to play.
Could you repeat them?
Sure. A strong glaive who wields 2 weapons. A tough glaive who rages. A swift jack who hunts with great skill. A stealthy jack who explores dark places. An intelligent nano who rides the lightning. A mechanical nano who works miracles.
I'd like the stealthy jack.
Okay.
Although the Metallica guy sounds pretty cool.
All right. Anybody else? Now, if you think of them, maybe if I give you each one, so the tough glaive is really a weapons master, the one that wields 2 weapons. He really has a lot of weapons. The rage is he's kind of like a berserker or a barbarian kind of person. The swiftjack who hunts with great skill is more of like a ranged bow type person who is going to be good with a bow. The stealth jack who explores dark places is really good at stealth and has some skills with caves and underground maneuvering and that kind of stuff. The nano who rides the lightning is a person that has the ability to throw lightning as an attack. And the mechanical nano who works miracles is the one healer type who has the ability to do a heal.
I want to ride the lightning.
Ride the lightning. All right. So let me do this. Okay, so I'll go over to my character sheets, and I already have them pre-built. So Nano 1 is the intelligent nano who rides the lightning. I'll go ahead and... Oh, I'm seeing chats. Is there people chatting to me or just rolling?
Just BSing.
Oh, okay. Okay. I wasn't sure I was missing anything. All right, so let me edit, and we'll go ahead and assign... can be controlled and edited by...
But we are paying attention.
Good. I'm not repeating myself. I'm okay with a TPK in the very first episode here, so that's good. So Chuff it's in his player journal. It can be edited once I hit save. Okay, you should now be able to see it on the right under journals instead of the chat button up at the top right. There's one more button over, and you should have journal. And I believe in there you should be able to see your character sheet now, Chuff.
Nano 1.
Nano 1. Yep.
Oh, yeah.
And when you
Stellar
open
name.
it, you should be able to take a look at it. Oh, everybody should be maybe thinking of a name. I just gave them, what they were, but you guys are going to be able to type in your own names for what character you're going to play tonight. You get to make your own name up. All right. Did anybody else pick theirs? So are you firm, Colonel, on the swift or the stealthy guy?
Yeah.
Okay, let's put you into that one. So that's going to be, I think, Jack number 2, right? Nope, that's the hunt skill. Jack number 1. Edit. And we'll make that one Colonel and Colonel. I'm letting you edit them too, so you should be able to type in your own name when you get in there. You'll be able to edit whatever's in there.
Sweet.
Save and change. All right, you should be able to see that one.
Got it.
All right, our other 2 players. What are we thinking? We've got a couple fighters left. We've got at least a ranged kind of scout-like person and a healer.
I'm down to go either the dual-wielding strong glaive or the sort of ranger type. If
Okay.
either of those is something that Troy wanted to
Troy is
play.
always the ranger. I'm waiting for him to...
All right, so I'll go the glaive then.
But he may not want to do it. I mean, maybe he doesn't want to do it because he always plays the ranger.
Nah, I'm fine with it.
Okay.
All right. So the strong
Um,
glaive wields 2 weapons.
all right, so that's going to be glaive number 1, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Let me make sure because I have 2 there. Character sheet. Yep. Okay, so edit, and we'll give that to PB. Perfect and perfect. Good. And Loam, we will finish you out with. You want the ranger or do you want the healer?
Oh, you know what? Let me do the healer. We don't have one, do we?
Nope, you don't have one.
I'll take it.
All right. This actually has some other cool abilities too, so it's not just.
Sure.
All right, so you guys should have your character sheets. Now, there's probably a bunch of stuff there you can read. You don't have to read it all right now. The main part of it is on. Well, I guess we can go through it. I'll open up one of them. So the first page, it says bio and info. And what I put in the bio and info area was just a blurb about what is, for your overall type, what's a glaive or what's a jack or what's a nano. And what it has typically is when you're creating your character, you get to decide what type of, how did your powers manifest or what is it about you? What type of glaive are you? So using glaive as an example. So like maybe you have inborn traits or you have biomechanical modifications or you have intensive training. It's just for fluff. It's just for the RP part of the game. And it's just the idea of it helps you kind of get a better feel for the character you're playing and why you might be a little different from if somebody else had picked glaive. So it's just informational. It's a fluff. You could pick one of those and just kind of help that within your role playing or think about as you're role playing that you're kind of following a little bit of that or when you describe yourself to somebody or those kinds of things. You can use a little bit of that information. Then the main part of the character sheet is the next tab over, which says character sheet. And it has pretty much most of what we're going to use on here to kind of play through. You can have this open and take a look at stuff. So obviously you have your name and information on the left-hand side. And then you have some background information. So under that I put, in this game, a lot of times when you create a brand new character, they give you what they call a connection to help the group kind of be cohesive right from the get-go. So like on this glaive 2, as an example, this one says, choose one other PC and you feel strangely protective toward that character and don't want to see them come to harm. So it's just adds another RP element and adds a link from one character to another in the party to give a reason why, these people from different walks of life are actually kind of together. They have some history. And where we start off in the story, we're going to assume or role play the idea that you guys have been a group you've done some other adventures together, you've come together, and so you are familiar with each other. So it's not like you're all coming together and you don't know each other. And then it's a little bit more about what your focus is. So like this one talks about what being rages mean. When it says a tough glaive who rages, what does that mean? It's a berserker, and so on and so on. So each of you have a little blurb about what makes you specifically different as whatever class you've chosen. Further down in that column is the special abilities. So these are the things that you'll be able to do in a turn. So there's things that can do melee stuff like a bash or no needs for weapons, or some of you might have onslaught, which is a ranged attack. You might have some other abilities that are listed in there that you can do. It'll tell you the cost, and we'll get into how to do that coming up, and what it might take, what pool it would come out of if it comes out of a pool. Then it moves us to the center column where we have our tier, our effort, and our XP. So tier just means like you're a first level character. So if you think of role-playing games. Effort is their mechanic to say when we make a roll, let's say, just to start off something easy, you guys are all like in a room, or you guys are exploring, say, a room, and you want to look for traps, or you want to look for secret doors, or you want to look for something that's out of the ordinary. We might have you do like a search roll or a perception roll, something like that. And typically what the GM will say, I'll say, okay, roll a difficulty whatever. And if I say difficulty 3, okay, that means you would have to roll a 9 or higher. If you're not sure about the difficulties, there is a handout over on the right-hand side that shows you the task difficulty. So it'll show you what each number is. So like if you want to do the math, it's just usually 3 times the number that I give you as far as the difficulty. So if I say difficulty 2, then you're going to have to roll higher than a 6. If I say difficulty 4, you're going to have to roll higher than a 12. Okay? So effort comes in because there might be a time when you want to say, I really want to make this roll. And so I'm going to spend some of my points that I have from my pools to give me a better chance to make this roll happen. So if I say it's a difficulty 3 and you say, you know what, I'm going to spend some effort and that's going to drop the difficulty down to a 2, which will make it easier for you to succeed. And that's where effort will come into. And it's 1 effort because you can only do that once per whatever action you're trying to do. If you're trying to hit somebody and you want to make sure you hit them, you're going to spend a piece of effort to do it. You can only do it 1 time. Later on, as a higher level character, you could spend multiple points and really lower this difficulty down 2 or 3 times. But in this case, you guys are first level characters, so you'll have 1 of those per any type of action you want to do. So I keep saying this word about pools, taking points out of pools, and that kind of leads us down to the next piece, which is the might, speed, and intellect pools. So these are your attributes, your main stats of your character. Obviously, might is about strength, endurance, health kind of things, resisting poison, lifting something, breaking something, moving something, physically moving something, those kinds of things. Your speed is dodging, sometimes certain types of attacks, sometimes it's running, sometimes it's, you're balancing or you're climbing, or your different kind of things that require dexterity of some sort, things that require more finesse than they do just raw strength or brute strength. And then intellect, which would be all of your more, anything that's thinking based, anything like memory or knowing history. Sometimes it could be perception. It could be persuasion when you're talking to somebody, intimidation, charming somebody, those kinds of things. We'll do rolls based on those things. Now you'll have the left number is your base. So that's your maximum currently at this level. And then the number next to it, because like this one says 12/12, if you spend points, then you would just lower the right side number down. Okay, so the left side number is your base, and your right side number is how much you have currently. And you can spend these points to do things. Sometimes you spend them to do actions. Sometimes you spend them on effort. Also, if you get damaged, points come out of your pool. So if something hits you, you're going to start taking points out of your might pool first. If that goes to 0, then you're going to start taking them out of the speed pool. If that goes to 0, you're going to go to the intellect. And if somehow, some way, I'm able to take all your points away, I win and you die. So that's my goal for tonight. We'll see if it happens. See if you guys can defeat me.
Such a happy goal.
Yeah. Now you might see a number that's underneath that. It's called edge. Anytime you have to spend points from your pool, if you have an edge, that lowers the cost. So if I want to spend some points to, let's say, okay, in this case, a glaive has a power that's called bash, and it costs 1 point of might to use that special ability. If I have edge in might, that zeroes out me spending that point, so it becomes free at that point. So it's 1 less of whatever the cost of the ability you're going to use. Also, if you're going to use effort, so I want to make something easier, I have to spend 3 points from my pool. But if I have edge, that can drop it down, so I can maybe only have to spend 2 points if I have edge in that. If it says 0, it just means you have to pay the full price. Okay, and it all kind of, as we go through the adventure and as we go through things, we'll start simple, and I think you guys will pick it up pretty quick. Then you have next down is recovery rolls. The way they do recovery, as far as how do I get points back in my pool? Well, you can be healed, and there's abilities that can do that. There's Cyphers, which are the equivalent of like a magic item or a technological item, can heal you. But what about just resting to get points back? Well, what you can do is you have 4 types of actions, and you can pick and choose how you want to do them in any order you want. But they don't reset until you've used all 4. So let's say we go through a battle, and then in the battle I want to get some points back. I could use one of my actions, and then I could roll a 1d6 and get some points back. Okay, and then I can put those in any of the pools I want. So maybe I put it back in the might pool because I've been getting hit. And then maybe the battle's over and I start to think, well, I'm down a lot of points in my pools. I'm going to use my 10-minute recovery. Okay, and then I get another roll. Now I could skip over the 1 hour and say, well, I know we're going to be resting for 10 hours at an inn. I'm going to use another roll, but until I use all 4, then it resets. So basically it's a 1 action, a 10-minute, a 1 hour, a 10 hour, and then it resets and you can do all that again. Okay. Hopefully it's not too much information I'm throwing at you guys. Next one down is Cypher. These are your kind of like your little magic items, your little things that you've found throughout the world that do things. Now, Cyphers are a one-off item, so they get 1 use. Okay, but don't feel like you can't use them. Don't feel like you have to hoard them, because you'll find many of them throughout many adventures. Okay, and they're meant to be used and not just, you'll get enough of them that you don't feel like you have to just hold on to them. The limit mentions that these things give off energy, and that if you have too many of them on you, you start to have ill effects based on that. But if you stay at your limit, then you don't have anything that affects you. So some of you might have a 2, some of you might have a 3, just depending on what you're doing. Advancement is how you move to your next tier. We probably won't get through most of that just in this one shot, but this would be how you would do that when you spend your XP. Going all the way back to the top, now we're on the right column, your skills. These are things that we just roll against if we're doing that type of skill. So like the character I'm looking at right now has a climbing. So if at some point there's a cliff that we need to climb and everybody needs to climb up the cliff, what we'll do is we'll roll, I'll tell you what the difficulty of the cliff is, how hard it is. So maybe let's say it's a difficulty 3. So you'd have to roll a 9 or higher to make sure you could climb up the cliff. And if you miss it, it doesn't necessarily mean that you can't climb the cliff. It might mean that it takes you longer than it would normally, So it doesn't necessarily always mean a complete fail. It just might mean it doesn't happen as quickly or something like that. Now, it is possible to roll really bad and you could maybe take some damage, or maybe you fall or something like that if we were using climbing as an example. Now, you will notice next to skills, there's some check boxes. There's a T and an S. If you're trained in a skill, you get to take 1 level of difficulty off any task I give you. So this person is trained in climbing. So if I said this cliff you guys are facing is a difficulty 3 to climb it. This character would be able to say, okay, I've got climbing as a train skill. That difficulty is only a 2 for me. So now they only have to roll a 6 or higher, and they have no problem. If you have a check mark in S, which is for specialized, you get to take 2 levels off of the difficulty for that task. Okay?
Should we be trained in all of the ones we have?
No, it's possible to have one that you're not trained in, which just means you have no ill effect when you try to do it. If you do a skill you don't have, let's say you don't have swimming, and there's a river and everybody's going to try to swim across it, and I say the difficulty is 3. If you don't have a skill at all, then yours is going to go up to a difficulty 4. If you have the skill, it's just at the 3. If you're trained, it's going to go down to a 2. And if you're specialized, it's going to go down to a 1. And it's possible to bring something down so far that you don't even have to make a roll. And then you just automatically succeed it. You don't even have to roll.
Cool.
All right, then we have armor. And I'm not doing the might cost speed. They have this thing where armor kind of weighs you down and wears on you if you're wearing it without the skill. But any of those that have the armor have the skill to use it. So I'm not even filling those out, or I'm not bogging the game down with worrying about that. So your armor point is if you take damage. So let's say a wild dog comes up and bites you and they successfully hit, and I say, okay, that's going to be 3 damage. If you have armor, you take that armor value, you subtract that from the damage that you receive. So this person here, the glaive I'm looking at, has an armor of 1. So instead of taking the 3 points of damage, they would only take 2 points of damage. And that would come off their might pool first, then their speed pool if that's gone, and then their intellect pool after that. All right. Now, and the attacks. Now, I put some of these in there for you guys, but we might fill these out as we go because you guys are going to have to pick a few things before we really get rolling. And this is your weapon area. And it tells you what your mod is and what your damage is. They really make it easy. Light weapons, they're easier to hit something, but they only do 2 damage. A medium weapon is no modification. It's just whatever the difficulty is, but that does 4 damage. And then a heavy weapon, no modification, but it does 6 damage. It has to be used with 2 hands. So when you guys pick your weapons, which I'm going to allow you to pick your own weapons here in a minute, you'll be able to put in these attacks. And if you want to add a line, you can hit the add button. You can type in, I picked a sword, or I picked an axe, or I picked a dagger. And you can put in the mod and the damage right from the chart if you want. Possession shins is the money that you have. So that's kind of like your gold pieces or whatever from any other type of role-playing game. Then your equipment, clothing. This guy has clothing, explorer's pack. And then I listed like pick 2 weapons, pick an extra light weapon, and then pick a light or medium armor. So this one has some choices that you guys can go ahead and make and customize. So you can say, because I didn't want to pick, whatever you wanted. If you wanted a sword, or you wanted a falchion, or you wanted, you can get creative with it, because it's still going to be basically either a light, a medium, or a heavy. And then you have an oddity. Everybody has nobody has any artifacts, but everybody has an oddity. And an oddity usually is like a trinket or thing that you found in your adventures that just does something weird or odd. Normally nothing that has to do with combat or any type of, great thing. But a lot of people will keep these because there's some piece of the technology, and sometimes they can be used for trading. Sometimes your character just thinks it's funny to have it. You might give it to somebody at some point, or do some haggling and trading. You can sell them sometimes, barter with them, those kinds of things, or you can just keep them. And then at the bottom there on that right column, it tells you about the difficulty. So if I say, it says the GM assigns the difficulty, you can actually use those buttons to roll. So if I said it's a difficulty 3, which is a demanding task, if you hit that button, it's going to go ahead and roll. And it's going to put it in the chat, and it's going to say, okay, and it'll tell me success or not, because I rolled a 1d20 and it had to be greater than 9. I got a 13, so I got a success. Or you can type in if you want to just do the type in where you do the type/roll. Either way is fine. Okay. the last part. Now, you may be seeing things as I was explaining all of that where you might say, well, I see these special abilities, but I have no idea what they do. I'm sure Chuff is looking at his and saying, I don't know what this does. Or he might be looking at his Cypher, and he's like, I don't know what this does. The third tab, under Attributes and Abilities, there's 2 columns. First column, you're not going to touch or do anything with. You just kind of ignore that it's there. It's used to run the other sheet and fill out data. But I put in on the right-hand side the abilities. And if you hold your mouse over the name, you will notice like a pencil, 3 lines, and an X show up. And if you click on the pencil, it'll give you a description of what it does. So as an example, the character I'm looking at has a bash ability. And when I click on the little pencil, it says this is a pummeling melee attack. Your attack inflicts 1 less point of damage than normal, but it dazes your target for 1 round, during which time the difficulty of all tasks the target performs is modified by 1 step to its detriment. So basically I can hit them, do 1 less point of damage, but it's going to be harder for them to hit me back if I succeed. Okay, so I tried to put in the description of everything that you might have in your character sheet under that. So also, like, this person has a cipher, a one-use cipher called a vocal translator. And when I click on it, it tells me it translates everything said by the user into a language that anyone can understand for the next 28 hours. But those things are like one use. The ciphers are one use only. Okay. All right, that was a lot of me talking and a lot of you guys listening to me. How do you feel about your characters? You're looking at them.
What was the middle part?
Mm-hmm. So the first thing you probably should do is put your name, which you guys might have. I'm not looking on that area yet, but go ahead and put your name. You can just click in there and type away. I do see we have Ricky Feelgood, Sir Choughington III, best at something. It goes on. I can't quite see what it says. It doesn't go far enough. We've got Quigley, so we're going to have a Quigley Down Under, which that's a good one. And who are we missing then? Is that...
That's me.
All right, so only Colonel has not come up with a name? Is that...
What? Yeah, Quigley.
Oh, Quigley.
That's me.
Oh, I see. PB's
thinking of a
picking a
name.
name. Come on, PB, show them how it's done. You're a Critical Role veteran. You know how this role-playing's done.
Isa.
You get bonus
no
points,
idea.
by the way, for the Quigley Down Under reference.
Oh, well, we're picking one.
Okay, yep. Also, next thing, if you looked under your equipment, I put in parentheses that you may need to pick something, like choose what weapons you want. You can do that over on the same place you saw your character. There's under handouts, there is a screenshot of the weapons, and you can look at that list and you can go ahead and type in what weapons you choose to pick.
Can you repeat that?
Sure. Over on your second tab on the right hand side, there you have your chat and then your what's it called? Journal.
Journal.
Yep. Now underneath character, you should also see handouts. And in the handouts, you should see weapons. And when you click on that, it should bring up the chart for weapons.
Okay.
You click on it one more time, it'll make it bigger, easier to read. And from there, if your character says pick a weapon, then go ahead and pick one of those weapons. Like for yours, you probably have to pick a light weapon, right?
Yeah.
So from that list of light weapons, you can pick any one of those light weapons. Most people will probably pick a knife or a dagger, maybe a rapier, which is just a fast sword type thing. But you can choose a club would be fine. Whatever you want to choose.
So if it says pick 2 weapons, it doesn't specify whether it's light or not.
So you can pick any 2 weapons you want.
Sweet.
Yep.
And where does it say how many I need to pick?
Should be in equipment on your character sheet, which is on the third column of the second tab.
Because it says short sword in there already.
Oh, I may have put that in there. You could replace it if you want. I think I typed that in.
I'll go with that. That's fine.
Okay.
As long as that's a thing.
Yep. It's basically like the rapier. I just typed in short sword.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So everybody can pick their weapons. If you do pick a ranged weapon, bow or something like that, then you start out with 12 ammunition for that. Automatically, without having to spend any money or anything. All right. And if you guys let me know when you feel like you've got your weapons typed in. Because I think once you have that, we're ready to start.
So just replace everything we have in parentheses.
Yeah, if it says pick something, then you can just pick it from the weapon. Or if yours says pick armor, you can also decide what armor you're wearing too. There's an armor handout there also. I think yours might.
Yeah.
I think the others were already given what they were going to wear.
Clothing.
Yeah, that's a nano.
So for the damage, we just put that in the damage column.
Yep. A light weapon is 2 damage, medium weapon is 4, heavy 6. All right, so while they're doing that, guys, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this our first break. I'm going to go ahead and pause here. We're going to pick our recording back up when we come in and we start our adventurers off on their first adventure. So stay tuned. We'll be back.